Hi there, and welcome to Still Learning Podcast. I'm your host, Fortune Fowle, and if you're new here, welcome to a space that's all about progression, not perfection. The fact that we are becoming people, which means we have not arrived at who we are meant to be, but every day we are learning and growing and getting closer to that destination. And so I invite you into this space, and happy Still Learning Monday. I'm really excited to be able to get in today's conversation. I touched upon it lightly the last time we spoke about how I acquired the job that I currently have now. And I was definitely being a bit vague in the last episode, but as promised, I decided to dedicate an entire episode just really talking about how I even got the job. Because when I tell you guys, it could have only been God. It could only have been God. And I know I said in the last episode that the way I acquired this job was through obedience to the Lord. It wasn't through any networks or connections that I had. It wasn't through having the perfect resume, but it was simply with just trusting God with my life and with my future and saying yes. And so when I was deciding how I wanted to have this conversation, how I was going to articulate it to you guys, because so much transpired that I didn't know how nitty gritty I wanted to get into. I didn't know what details that I should keep or should I say. But honestly, we're just going to let the conversation flow from here. And I did actually write a whole journal entry about my experience in acquiring this job. It was written on July 3rd, 2025. So that's also a lot where I'm pulling from, because that's where I feel I was really able to fully articulate myself and all the emotions and thoughts and feelings. And I've been having the last kind of month and a half to process the situation. So now I can bring it forth to you guys in this way that I can kind of show you the things that I've learned and the ways that I've been able to trust God. And so where does our story begin? Our story begins, I want to say, the beginning of June. And if you recall from last week's episode, I talked about how at the beginning of June, I was fasting. I was not really applying to jobs because I started applying for jobs originally in March. So back to back, every single week, I was applying to jobs. I was hearing no's. I was not getting past the first phase of interviews. And so if you do hear back from a job, you have a first phase, and typically you'll speak with a talent recruiter. I'm not sure how it works in other industries, but specifically this has been my experience with nursing. And so you'll speak with the talent recruiter, and the talent recruiter will gauge to see what are your interests, if you're fit for even the hospital environment, why do you want to work specifically at this hospital? And then from there, the talent recruiter will either connect you with other units within the hospital that they think that will be the best fit for you. I haven't, in my past experience before acquiring this job, really gotten past the first phase. It's either I didn't hear back from them at all, or I didn't even get past the phone call interview with the talent recruiter to even be able to be interviewed with the unit. And so that can be discouraging, but I talked about how for me, I am a firm believer that whatever is for me, I'm going to receive, and nothing's going to stop me from receiving it. And whatever I don't receive simply wasn't for me. And honestly, I don't want anything in life that isn't for me. I want everything that was made and crafted for me, because that means it has me and who I am and the person I'm going to become in mind. And so I really try to keep this very optimistic and open mind towards everything, but it can also be really hard being in a waiting season and seeing the people who you graduated with, your classmates, get jobs before we even graduate, have a job lined up for them. And so you're kind of okay, when's it going to be my turn? But I constantly have to be really intentional about not allowing myself kind of go down that pathway of thinking, and really just be what is for me will come for me. And what can I do now? Because I'm not waiting for nothing. And if you're in a waiting season, if you're waiting for a job, I know the job market right now is not the best. I want to let you know that you're not waiting for nothing. And there is kind of double meaning in that. You're not waiting for nothing. So that means that in your waiting, there is purpose. And for me, while I was waiting, I was really focused on the intentionality of my heart and in my mind and the kind of person that I want to become and the kind of health professional I want to be. And I was thinking about how God isn't just considering me when it comes to this job. He's considering the patients that I'm going to interact with, the family members. He's considering the coworkers. He's considering the unit. He's considering the managers. He's considering all these people and all these individualistic details that I'm not thinking about at all. I'm just thinking about, I just want to get a job. But God's thinking about not just a job, but the people and the impact and the purpose. And so you're not waiting for nothing. And then the other meaning, when I say it's a double meaning that you're not waiting for nothing, is that on the other side of your waiting, there is something there for you. You're literally not just waiting for nothing to come for you. There is something on the other side ready for you to be able to receive. You just got to position yourself to receive it. I feel like that's kind of what I was doing. I was positioning myself and posturing my heart to receive whatever was coming next for me in this next season and in that job. And so it's the beginning of June when I was fasting, and I heard from the Lord to tell me to apply for jobs within a specific state. And I already in the past had applied to jobs in that area. Like, guys, as I say before, I had been applying to jobs since March all over the East Coast because I wanted to stay along the East Coast. There were a couple outlier jobs that were further out, Midwest and things like that. But for the most part, it was the East Coast. And I applied and looked at every single state you could think about. And also in my application process and me applying to jobs, I wasn't just applying to any jobs. I was also being intentional. I wasn't necessarily picky, but there were things that I just wasn't going to compromise on because I don't believe God calls us to settle beneath what he's prepared. And also when I went to like a hiring event, I won't forget this piece of advice that one of the managers stated, which is that don't take a job just because you need a job. Make sure that job is a place that's going to be a place where you can grow and be fulfilled in. And I really took that away. And so for me, when I was seeking out jobs, I want a job where I can grow, where I can be fulfilled, where there is going to be community and strengthen me to become the best nurse that I can be. So that was another thing. I wasn't settling. I wasn't just looking for anything. I was literally looking for what was going to be for me. But in this specific area that God was telling me to apply to, I had looked before and there was no jobs, no positions open or available or really that suited me. And so when God told me to apply and look again, I was just like, God, look again. I have looked before. Like, what's the point? My response kind of was one of frustration because like, God, why would you want me to look in the place where I came up empty before? I just had to humble myself and surrender myself in that moment and be like, okay, God, I'm just going to look again because you told me to. And when I tell you, when I looked this time around, there was something there. Before, there was nothing, but this time when God told me to look, I found something. Oh, that literally reminds me of the verse like, seek and you shall find, knock and the door shall be opened. Genuinely, when I sought, when God told me to seek, I found it. And I don't even know if I use like the verbiage and the tenses right and what I just said, but I'll say that again just for clarification. When God told me to seek and I did seek it out in that moment, I found something. I did not come up empty like the last time. And so a little word of encouragement, if you have looked somewhere before and you're like not sure if whether or not you should look again, because you might just come up full this time instead of empty. So just a little word of encouragement here. But continuing on with our story and how we got here, I found a position. And it was not only the fact that I found this position, but it was the fact that it was the last day to apply. It was the last day to apply to this job, guys. Like, what? Like, I find this job and I find it on the last day that you can apply for it. And so that could be nerve-wracking, but in that moment, I didn't feel like I was late. I didn't feel rushed. I felt like I was right on time. Like, I found this job exactly when I found it. If I literally didn't look the moment God told me to, the application would have closed. I would have missed my timing. But the fact that I looked then, like I was obedient in the seeking, and I found it in that moment, even though it was the last day, I found it exactly when I need to. It was the perfect timing because it was God's timing. And I was already positioned and postured to be able to start the process of applying and receiving this position that God had in store for me. Because during this time, I was getting prepared for anointed to care. I was fasting. So literally, I was going through this renewal and transformation in my heart. And I was doing a lot of inner work within myself. And so I really do think God was just preparing me for this moment and to receive it. And though I've been applying to jobs since March, so I don't want you to think this was a process that started the beginning of June, because remember, I've been applying to jobs since March, which means that for the last 3 months, God has been preparing and positioning me for this. And so I come into it. I applied for the job and I'm just like, it's in your hands, Lord. My exam for the NCLEX was coming up. I wasn't thinking so much about it. I honestly don't think I knew what would come of it. I was just like, gonna submit my application. I think about a week or two later, like it was pretty fast. Typically it would take a while to hear back, but I remember feeling like, oh my gosh, they got back to me really quickly. And it was the talent recruiter and they were wanting to do a phone interview with me. And I was like, oh my gosh, okay, but we've been here before. Remember guys, I have done phone interviews before and I didn't get past the first step. And I remember being like, Fortune, stop. You can't have that mindset. You can't be doubting now. You have to be speaking life into it, life into your circumstances. You have to say that you're going to get past this first stage of interviewing. Not only are you going to get past the first stage of interviewing, you're going to interview with the unit. And not only are you going to interview with the unit, you are going to receive a job offer. Okay. Like you are going to fully step in and receive every single step, because I genuinely do believe from the start to the very end and to me receiving this job was all God ordained. And I remember there was a Friday within, I believe it's like the third week of June, and it was a Friday. I specifically wrote it down. And I wrote how like really did believe that the Lord was impressing within my heart that I was meant to receive a job at that specific hospital that I'm currently working at. But that kind of felt crazy for me to be thinking. Like for me to be writing down, I was like, am I hearing from you right, God? Is this in my head? But I just felt so impressed within my heart. The Lord was like, you are called to be here. I'm calling you to be a nurse here. And I didn't know what else to believe. I was just like, I'm just going to write this down. I'm just going to write it down, because my thing is you truly know it's God if it comes to pass, because God's word is always going to come to pass. It's always going to be fulfilled. So I was like, let me just write this down. I'm just going to believe in faith. And so our recruiter reached out to me. I set up a phone call interview with her, and the conversation went so well, guys. It went so well. Like it was just so warm and inviting. I felt so comfortable, and she was so kind. And we just spoke about community and just how you feel so supported. And that was my biggest thing. I wanted to feel like I was in an environment that would support me and help me grow and mature me, because I'm a baby nurse, I'm a novice, but I'm also really a sponge, and I like to soak up as much as I can. I'm really inquisitive, I would say. Like I'm very a person who will ask like 1,000,001 questions. I don't believe there's such thing as a stupid question, because I probably am the person asking what would be quote unquote be the stupid question. Like I'm really curious and want to understand the why. And she was just so welcoming and so inviting of my questions, and had such thoughtful responses that really spoke that she felt so seen and heard in her own environment and workspace. And so the conversation went so well. And after that, guys, she reached out to me about setting up calls with me and seeing what units I would be interested in. And I remember, guys, this is the first time it's happened for me. I'm like, what? Like, I got to the second stage. Wait, we're going to be interviewing with units now. Oh my gosh. Okay. So I'm emailing her back. I'm like, oh my gosh, like, thank you so much. Like, I had such a great conversation. She sent me like a list of different units that are currently like available for positions. So like how it works when you're applying the jobs, like not all units will have like open positions for new nurses. So she sent me a list of units that currently do have open positions for new nurses. And then I got back to her with like my top 3 choices. And so I was just kind of freaking out the fact that like, oh my gosh, I got through the second step. And in the back of my mind, I'm remembering what I wrote down about what the Holy Spirit told me about. This is a place that God has called me to work. And I'm just like, God, did I really hear you right that time? Like, it's really looking like what you was saying. And I know you not to lie. You're not like, man, but like, can this be real? And I was like, you know what? I'm going to believe in like so much in this, like with so much hope and with so much favor, like I'm just going to believe in this. I think that there was at some point in this job application process that I kind of lost a little bit of hope. I didn't want to get my hope so high just to hear another no. But I was like, no, this time around, I'm going to have my hope be high, because I am in expectancy to hear a yes. Like my hope now had this kind of shift of expectancy. I was like, no, I have high hope because I expect a yes to come my way. I have high hope because I expect a job offer to come my way. Like I am in expectation, not because of anything I've done, because I didn't look for this job get this job. I didn't even speak in a way or reach out to anyone who I knew in a way to help me be able to start stepping into this job or even know that this job was available. The only person I had was God, like the only person. And so genuinely, I was just leaning into that. And so I let her know what units I'm interested in. And immediately she set up the interviews with the unit. And so I was looking forward to that. It was going to happen at the end of that week. Then the morning of interview, I see that I got an email from her. And she's letting me know, hey, I'm so sorry. This unit no longer has any open positions available for new grad nurses. And so for me, when I read that email that morning, mind you, that afternoon, I was scheduled to do an interview with that unit. But now to get an email that morning telling me that, hey, it's not happening anymore. Guys, that definitely did a number on me. I was like, God, did I hear you right? Like, did I get my hope up for nothing? Like, I started second guessing myself. Like, the worry and kind of like the anxiety started creeping in. And I was like, oh my gosh, was I being delusional? But like, I wish I could tell Fortune that you're not being delusional. You're acting in faith. But genuinely, I was just like, did I mishear? And I just needed a moment. I didn't even get back to her like immediately like I was doing before. I needed a moment to just like clear my head and just like talk with God. And so I took a walk that morning and I was just like, okay, Lord, you told me that you've called me to work at this hospital. I'm believing that that is what you have declared and spoken over my life. But then I get this email this morning saying that the interview that I have with this unit is no longer going to happen. And God, that's discouraging. And I really want to believe in what you've told me, but it's kind of hard to believe in what you've told me when this is my current circumstance. And, you know, God was just so kind with me in that moment. Like, he was just so kind and gentle. And I just knew he heard me. And in response to that, he was like, I called you to the hospital. Now it's about calling you to the correct unit. And for me, I wasn't even thinking about that, guys. I wasn't thinking about how specific and intentional God is, where he's like, not just thinking about the hospital. I'm also thinking about the unit you're going to work on and the colleagues you're going to have and the patients you're going to have. Like, I'm thinking about all those little details that I necessarily wasn't thinking about. And he was just being so considerate of me in that moment. And he was like, I told you this is the hospital you're going to work at. I didn't tell you which unit it would be. Clock it. Clock it, because that humbled me in the moment in that walk when I was walking. But it was also so encouraging because like, you're right, God. You didn't say the unit. You just said the hospital. So there's still hope. Your word still rings true. Like, I shouldn't be so quick to allow this setback to think that you have been set back. Like, I shouldn't have been quick to think that, oh my gosh, there it goes. All has been lost. No. Actually, nothing has changed for God's plans. This is still going to be the place you work at. It just might not be that unit. And so after that walk, after like receiving that from the Lord, I'm like, you're right, God. Okay. Having my hope renewed and like refreshed and my faith uplifted once more, I went back into my emails, looked at what she sent me, and she followed up by sending me another set of units to apply to. I was like, oh, wait. They're still interested in me. All is not lost indeed. They're still interested in me. For me, it really spoke something to me that like, oh, like you're sending me more units. Like some other places might have just been like, sorry, maybe if you can try applying another time, or kind of like shelve you in a way, like shelve your application after that. They won't offer you more opportunities and really kind of like fight for you in that way to show that they really want you to work in that hospital and like provide you different ways. So the fact that she even did that really spoke volumes for me and reaffirmed to me that this really is the place that God is calling me to work at. And so I'm looking at the other ones. I tell her my second unit that I would want to be working at from that list that she sent me. And in doing so, immediately, guys, like, also that was another thing. For the last 3 months, I had been waiting, just waiting to have a job and all these different things, waiting to hear back from them. And with this specific hospital, I set in my second option for the unit that I want to work at. And she got back to me literally that day, set up an interview like that day. Like it was suddenly just happening. I was like, God really can do things in less than 24 hours. Like, you can be waiting for years, but in the blink of an eye, your life can do a 360. And that's what it felt like. It felt like a 360. And so I had an interview with the unit that I'm currently going to be working on the following week. And that week, I was a bundle of nerves, guys. I was like really nervous. I was like kind of sweating. I was getting heart palpitations a little bit. And I'm pretty good interviewer. I'm pretty good at speaking with people and conversating with people. And for me, my go-to in an interview is if I can make a person laugh, I got it. Because like, who wouldn't want to work with someone who makes them laugh? I want to work with people who make me laugh. It just makes my day better. You know, it makes the work environment better. So I feel like when I can make someone laugh in an interview, there's a win. I also feel like if I can compliment someone, I definitely think that those help you out because it shows your character and it shows that you're someone who they want to work with, right? Like someone who they want to work side by side with and can have communion with. And so for me, that's what I'm thinking about. And I go into this interview, guys. I set up camp downstairs in my dining room area. I get prepared. And it just seemed like it wasn't my day. The Wi-Fi in my house was acting up. So as the interview was happening, it was cutting out. And at one point, I cut out completely in the beginning when I'm on this interview call with them. And I'm just like, of all days, of all times, why today? Why is this happening right now? I know technical issues happen and with Zoom and everything. And so they're okay with it and they're used to it. But for me, it just felt like, are you kidding me? God, seriously, what is going on here? This should be smooth sailing. Everything should be good. But I get back on the interview and I'm talking with them. And I have done interviews before, but with this specific interview, I've never felt so grilled per se. Not that they were grilling me. I don't want to say that, but like there was a lot of questions, a lot of intuitive questions they were asking me. And I prepared before, but I just never have been interviewed in that way where I'm pretty sure they asked me a good 10 to 12 questions, asking me about what are my plans for furthering my education, why do I want to work here, why in comparison to my last hospitals, like a lot of very intuitive and like even some situational questions, problem solving questions. It was low-key kind of intense, but you know, guys, I don't know how. I mean, I definitely think it's because I prayed beforehand, Holy Spirit, give me the words to speak. But I genuinely don't know how I got through that interview, guys, how I answered the questions the way that I did and so eloquently that I did. Honestly, guys, I surprised myself at some points with the answers that I had because I don't even know where that came from. Like, you know, it just starts coming out of nowhere. But I was just glad that I had the Holy Spirit with me in that conversation. There were still some technical issues here and there throughout, but something that I can just kind of bypass and like hope and pray that my Wi-Fi balance out for the rest of the interview. And not only was that happening, guys, not only was I feeling kind of pressured by the kind of interview questions they were asking me. I've never experienced that before in other interviews. And not only was I dealing with technical issues, but I was sweating like there was no tomorrow. And it was bad. Like I was sweating so bad. And I was just praying. I put the little gloss filter on Zoom so that you wouldn't be able to tell that I was sweating as much as I did. Like maybe it just looked like I was glowing on the camera, but I was sweating so like profusely. It was so bad. So you can imagine the moment before I even say that, guys, at the end of this interview, right, once we're done talking, she lets me know that the talent recruiter just texted her because we did go a little bit over time. And so she's like, oh yeah, the talent recruiter just texted me, like not texted her, emailed her. And she was asking me how it went. And she was like, oh, I'm going to go tell her how it went now. So imagine being in the interview and the person who's interviewing you is like, oh yeah, I'm going to go ahead and talk and let her know how your interview went. And like, that's like the decision that would determine whether they liked you or not. And mind you, that whole interview, you have no idea whether they like you or not. Like I ended that call just feeling like, I have no idea if they either loved me or hated me. And I've never felt that way off of an interview. I've done previous interviews before where I didn't necessarily feel like I had the job in the bag, but at least I felt like they kind of liked me a little bit. Like I felt like they connected with me or thought something like that. But in this interview, I didn't feel any of that kind of reassurance. And I think it was just because that reassurance I think it was kind of God just showing me that reassurance should just come from him and just trusting his word. Like, despite literally my circumstances, it was kind of crazy when I think about it now. Like, my circumstances were like fighting in a way against what God has spoken. Like, things would happen suddenly, but then there'll be these little moments where it's like, am I hearing you right? That would almost kind of plant these seeds of doubt, like dealing with the technical issues, sweating profusely in my interview, feeling like maybe they didn't like me as much, and pressured by the interview questions, which is things that I never felt before. Or even the week prior, like the original interview I had set up being canceled, like feeling like it's happening, but then there's all of a sudden my circumstances are changing and there's these obstacles, literal obstacles in the way that I'm like, God, if this is what you have called for me, I wonder, why isn't it happening smoothly? I just want this to be received smoothly. Simultaneously, it was like it was happening smoothly with like rough bumps in the middle. That's what it felt like. And so I got off the interview, guys. I was a little bit emotional and I just was talking with God. I was like, Lord, I hope that went well. I just thank you, Lord, that I even got to interview. Like, guys, I was really trying not to be defeated because I just felt so shot. I was just like, what the heck was that? I just felt like I didn't do well. But again, thinking about it now, even if I didn't do well, God is still good. Even if I didn't feel like I was my most perfect self, where I definitely did not feel like I showed up as my most perfect self in that interview. Guys, did I forget to mention that I was sweating profusely? Nothing about that interview was perfect. None about this whole journey was perfect, but it's the fact that God is perfect and he's good. And so everything worked out exactly how he said it would. 2 hours later, guys, after I'm kind of down on myself about this interview, feeling like I kind of trashed it, just not feeling my best about it. 2 hours later, I get an email with a job offer. Yep, a job offer for the unit I just interviewed with. 2 hours. I was stunned. In that moment, guys, I was so stunned. And I think I was so just overwhelmed by what was happening that in that moment, I wasn't even able to properly rejoice and like, oh my gosh, yes. I was just stunned. I was like, what? Is this real? I didn't know how to process it in that moment. 2 hours later, just 2 hours ago, I was kind of wallowing and having a little bit of a pity party for myself, wondering if I heard from God right and why was things happening the way that they did. And just the fact that I got that job offer, it was just felt so monumental because this was a journey that had started for me really in March, not even the beginning of June, really in March. And the process of even getting here, and I was just so stunned. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to say. And really, guys, if I'm being quite honest with you, it wasn't until the next day that I was able to process everything. I had a whole journal entry that I wrote down. So the job offer, I got it July 2nd. And the journal entry and the reflection, I wrote it down July 3rd, and I was just processing everything and just everything that I went through. And I was just in such awe of God because I was just like, what is life? From the start to beginning, no matter what my circumstances look like, no matter what the hiccups in the road were, the very thing that God told me would be mine to receive, nothing stood in the way. No technical difficulties, no no's from other units stood in the way. Not even myself, not even the moments of doubt that I was having, not even the moments of anxiety or nerves that I was feeling. None of that, both physically and internally, what I was going through impacted or changed exactly what God told me, which is that you're going to receive a job in this hospital. This is the place I'm calling you. It didn't matter what my circumstances looked like. It didn't matter what changed, what stayed the same. He was consistent through it all. He was faithful through it all. And I was just like, God, who am I? Who am I that you're like this good to me? I think about how I didn't use any connections. I didn't use any networks. It wasn't even my resume. I think about how I literally applied on the very last day, but it was God's timing, because I wouldn't have even applied to this position if God didn't tell me to look for this position. If I wasn't just leaning in and really seeking to hear from him. Genuinely, it makes me think about the Bible verse that says, seek him in the kingdom of God first, and all else shall be added to you. Genuinely, I just sought him and the job was added to me. Like, the job was added to me, and I didn't even position myself. I allowed God to position me. God put me exactly where I needed to be in that moment, in that space. He helped posture my heart exactly where it needed to be to receive and to obtain this job. And it's just so insane how it happened, because there's no other way that it could have happened through my means or through human means. It could have only been him. Especially in this job market, in this time where everything should have not been the way that it was. But simply because God said so, it was exactly the way that he said it would be. And I'm just so grateful. I have no words. There's no other way that I can explain or tell you guys how I obtained this job. How did you get this job? What is your biggest advice? What would you do? I'd be like, God, just trust him, be obedient to him. Know that everything is purposeful and intentional, and there is a timing for everything. And when it's God's timing, it's perfect. And you don't have to be at your best. You just have to show up. He's able to move and do things that you never thought would be able to be possible in your life. Your no's start becoming yes. The closed doors, new doors start opening that you are meant to walk into. And one thing that I didn't really touch upon as I'm telling you guys this story is that I was visiting different churches during this time as I'm waiting for the Lord and hearing from him. And every single sermon given during that time would literally speak into my situation, that I would be looking up at God and be like, have you been talking to this pastor? Because he really in my business. He's in my business. But it was just reassurance that God was giving me in every single moment. Like, the moment any doubt would come into me, God would immediately reassure me. He was so patient. He was so kind throughout this whole process and journey with me. And I'm so excited to see what he has next, because my thing was, I'm not about to receive anything that God hasn't called me to see. I want it to be patented by the Lord. And so I am so excited to see what he has next, to see how it's going to unfold before me, because the following week after I received the job, I got to shadow the unit, and the very things that I was just wanting for myself in terms of just being in a place where I can grow and teamwork, to see that be reaffirmed in the space, and to see people work together, and just to see how, like, the people who I got to interact with and the nurses who I did, they were so welcoming. When I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going to start working here at this point in time. And they were like, oh, so excited, happy to have you on the team. It was such an inviting space, and like, I felt comfortable and I was laughing, and it really made me excited for what was next. And it was a space that even them, they were asking, what are your goals and how can we help you with your goals and what is your plans? And they were just talking to me, someone who was already a part of their team. And I just felt so included within it. And for me, it was just further confirmation that, oh my gosh, God, you know exactly what you're doing. Like, not that I doubted that you didn't know what you were doing before, but you know exactly what you're doing. Like, me saying yes to you, me be obedient to you is never, ever, ever a mistake. Like, me placing my hope within you, because when I put my hope in the Lord, I can always expect to receive good things. And you can't expect God outcomes without doing it God's way. And so because I did it his way, this was the outcome. And the outcome genuinely superseded anything that I could have done or thought I would be able to acquire if I did it through my own means or through the means of human beings. So as this episode comes to a close, here's what I'm walking away with, guys, which is the fact that me acquiring this job had nothing to do with me and everything to do with God. It wasn't because I was qualified or because I was perfect or because I had everything together, because quite literally I didn't. Simply because I just trusted him with my future and what's next. Really, that's all I can do in this moment. There's so much unknowns ahead of me, but one thing that I know for sure is God, and that he's faithful and that he is true and that you can always put your trust in him, and that despite the no's you may experience, despite the waits you might undergo, all of that is working for your good, and it's all things that are ensuring that you don't receive anything that's less than what God has already prepared for you. I spoke months ago about how the job is already prepared, the community's already prepared, the apartment's already prepared, and it has rung true. After I acquired the job, guys, everything else started falling into place. The way that I got the apartment that I was able to acquire, the finances, the move, everything, literally, guys, just fell immediately into place with such an ease that it further just confirmed to me that the Lord provides where He has prepared for you and where His presence is. And so I really do hope that this episode has been so encouraging to you if you're in a waiting season, if you are just someone who might be on the little last drop of hope left, if you're someone who just been feeling so much doubt and discouragement. I really hope that this reminds you that it's not over. I hope this reminds you that you still have something on the other side for you to receive. And all you gotta do is just keep on believing, keep on having the faith, keep on speaking life into your situation and circumstances. Keep on believing that this will be your story, because it will be your story. This is not just exclusive to me. What has happened for me acquiring this job is not exclusive to me, but it's something that God wants to do for all of us and that He is doing for all of us. So just lean into that. Trust and seek Him and know that He is true and that what is for you, you will receive. And so I hope that you enjoyed this episode of Still Learning, and I will see you next week for another episode of the Still Learning podcast. Bye.